Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems, and with me is Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute.
How would you define the difference between sales and marketing? Yes, both generate top-line revenue, but how can you leverage and maximize the return of time, money, and talent on both to generate even more revenue? This could be a debate or a discussion as Bill and I discuss the difference between sales and marketing and other important ideas on episode 504 of Winning at Selling podcast.
Episode 504, Scott, I can hardly believe we've done 104 episodes together.
I know. And we've never taken a week off for those of you that are playing along at home. I mean, It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's Arbor Day.
And it's all for you. It's all for you. That's right.
Keep delivering. We'll just keep delivering value.
So we're almost to the point of our 2-year anniversary, I think sometime in April, right?
Yeah.
April 1st, something like that.
It is.
So early
it
April.
Is, yeah.
April Fool's Day. That's right.
At it.
That's right.
Just keep going.
Yeah. And if you agree with that comment, send us a note because we'd like to know if you think we're foolish. But we are going to start with our book club, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I would recommend you get this book. Wow. I think it's taken almost every developmental book that I've ever read and put it into one book, and fairly short chapters and great information.
I've been using some of this stuff and I'm like, where did that ever come from? I learned it from somebody else. I overhear it. I read it from a different author, a different book. And then I look at it.
It's in Og Mandino and it's in this. Yeah. Number 16 is be willing to pay the price. And what I got out of this is it's what you do when no one else is watching.
Right.
You're practicing your cold calls, your networking. What are you doing to build momentum? He talks about a rocket. How it has to really push to a certain point and then it starts to move faster. I like to think about an airplane. If you're taking off in a jetliner and you really want to focus and you want to, if your job or your career is a jetliner, you can't push it to the hilt for 2 minutes and then you get near the end of the runway and pull back. You've got to push through that very difficult spot and build some momentum so that you can get to the point where the wings are creating lift. There's enough air movement over those. I know you use plane analogies.
Yeah, I do.
And to lift that plane up, and then the systems start to work and you can fly. But if you don't build enough momentum, you're never going to get off the ground. And I think that's so important. What do you think about this practice, cold calls, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I love it. There was a line out of the book, when you're not practicing, someone somewhere is. And I always think about who is the person that I'm competing with, who is my enemy in the marketplace. And I always think about when I'm not practicing, I'm guessing they are. And I always think about that time that I'm not spending sharpening the saw and really stepping up the game.
And not just practicing, but doing the things that need to be done. They're stealing. You're allowing them to take your business if you're not making enough calls to go out and pull that business in. If you become satisfied, and I think you used an example last week or the week before, where you talked about a friend of yours who made his year in February or March and didn't do anything the rest of the year.
Exactly.
And you become satisfied and other people are going to take your business away from you. Yeah. So build that momentum up, and that can either be practice. And boy, did he give a lot of examples of great sports figures, the best sports figures in the world. They weren't the shortest practicers. They were the ones that were there early and left late. They had some kind of a process. Somebody had to hit 5 shots from each of 10 different places. Yeah. And if he missed one, he had to go back and start over again.
Right.
So,
just great discipline and, people doing more than the minimum. I think too often people seek to do the minimum just to get by, but you have to commit to, what can I do to really achieve the goal? Pay the price in advance.
Right.
And I think, this is the word integrity. Like you started off, it's like when you're doing something, when nobody's watching, that's integrity. And when people really commit to that, I think they end up sharpening their own personal integrity that ends up reflecting in all their behaviors.
It's when your goals and your aspirations are higher than the people around you. It's when, he's talked so much about goal setting, that goal setting and the affirmations that you set, they're the things that draw you to do things when no one's looking. Rather than doing the minimums, you're doing the maximums, and you don't care what other people are doing. You don't care what other people think. This is what I want to do to achieve it. Even if my boss says I need to make 25 calls a day, I'm going to make 30, or I'm going to make 2 hours worth, or I've got a little extra time, I'm going to make 5 more calls. It's not, tick, 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 ding, the timer went off, I'm done.
Right. Taillights. All you see is taillights.
That's right. So pay the price. Be willing to pay the price. And number one. Then the second one, Scott, is ask. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And I think if you want something, you got to ask for it. There's speakers that talked about this. John Baker is one that always, ask.
He's got the asking formula. Yep.
Yeah. Great guy, great energetic presentation. And you got to ask for it. And I always like using the word because. When you use the word because and you justify it, it makes people more receptive to granting whatever you're asking for, because you're justifying, you have a reason for why you're asking something.
Right.
That's a negotiation technique, but use the word because, and then people are going to be more willing to give it to you, what you're asking for.
That's right. I really was struck by the thought process he went through about, if you ask and you don't get it, you're no worse off than you were before.
Oh, so true.
And we're so worried about how we appear to people. Just ask for it. Just ask for what you want. And you may not get it, but if you do get it, you win. And all you had to do is ask.
Right.
And so I've watched some shows on swapping, which I think are kind of fun. And somebody will start off with, a box of paper clips. And they'll ask if, hey, you want to swap it for this? And they'll swap for something bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden they have a travel trailer.
Wow. Amazing.
So it's kind of a fun process. And all they're doing is asking.
Right.
Would you swap this box of paper clips for that book over there?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, I'll do that. And then they just swap bigger and bigger. And it's all this ask. But if we're afraid, if we're fearful, we won't ask. And so you have to overcome that fear of the consequences.
And I'll just add number 5 of his list is ask repeatedly. And I really love that. It's like, yes, you have to ask repeatedly. Salespeople have got to follow up on more than one message that they leave on a voicemail. You need to say, if I don't hear back from you in 2 days, I'm going to call you again. And when it's a perfect fit, when it's in your target market, when it's in the industry that is the shortest sales cycle, the highest closing ratio, the most profitability, you need to be persistent on getting that person to be able to engage in a conversation with you. And you need to ask repeatedly, more than once. That demonstrates commitment when you do that. When you don't do that, it demonstrates that you're not committed to having a conversation with that prospect, which means that you're not committed to delivering the value to that person, which means how can that person buy from you because you don't demonstrate value?
Yeah, I worked with a client recently, and part of their thought process, and we're going to go into the sales and marketing, but this was more marketing thought process, was, well, they said in interviews that they didn't like phone calls. So we kind of stopped doing them, and we sent them emails because they like that more.
Yeah, right.
And of course, people are in a response are going to say, do you like cold calls? No, I don't like cold calls. Okay, good. Well, let's not do those anymore. Wow. Except if I have something to offer you, then maybe you're more receptive to it. And if I know how to do that and ask in a polite way, then you're more receptive to it. And if I'm consistent with that calling over time, you'll become more receptive to it. Yeah. So don't let the fact that you don't like it when somebody calls you cold stop you from doing the right thing. Every once in a while, I engage with those people because they hit my interest.
Right. And who's responsible for making a cold call interesting? It would be the salesperson, not the prospect.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I mean, the prospects are making their vote based on all the terrible cold calls that salespeople have given them.
Or the machines now.
Oh, yeah.
It's all machines. Hi, this is Bob.
Yeah.
So those are awful. Okay. So ask. Number 18, rejection. I like the title of this one. You have got to get over that rejection is a bad thing, or because they said no, they don't like me. You will never please everyone. What's in their song? You're never going to please everyone, so you got to please yourself. I think that's a song. Anyway, that's what I wrote down. You're not going to please everyone, so you got to please yourself. So I really like the story about the chiropractor in this one.
Yeah.
He went
Wonderful
into
story.
somewhere in Southern California. He talked to some people. They said, we don't need any. He talked to other chiropractors. They said, we don't need any more
Of
chiropractors down
course.
here. We've
Of course,
got
that's
enough.
what they said.
And he said, well, this is where I want to be. So let's see what I can do. And he knocked on 12,500 doors. He surveyed them and said, what would a good chiropractor look like to you? And he modified his service to do that. And he created record income in his first year.
And he closed it out with, when I have an open house, would you like to attend? And they said, sure, I'll put you on the list.
And he wrote their name down. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. There was a great practice in this one, SW, 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 SW. I have been saying that for, I think, 20 years. I've been saying that. And all of a sudden I'm reading it in this book and I'm like, is that where it originated, or did he grab it from somebody else?
He grabbed it from somebody else. I had a friend 20 years ago, had that on his license plate.
Oh, yeah. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. Yeah.
That's right. He just had the first 3 sets, but some will, some won't. So what? And that was his idea as a salesperson is I don't care.
Right.
I'm going to find the ones that do want to engage. And that's who I want to have fun talking with.
You think about the unemployment rate in America or any other country, and it's like, wow, it's at 4%. Oh, it's at 6%. Oh, it's at 8%. It's at 8%. That means 92% of the people are working.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's prospects out there that are willing to buy your products and services. You just have to find them. So you just need to say to yourself, SW, 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 and that's out right. You go to try to find them. They're out there. We know they're out there.
And part of that too is this, we're in a down market, so I can't make any sales.
Yeah.
Time to work a little harder. And if you make the calls in the down market, when the market goes up, your business will double.
Yeah, that's a mindset. Think how many people bought a house in a terrible market. Think how many people bought stock in a terrible market. It's a mindset.
That's right.
It's not a reality.
All right. Number 19, use feedback to your advantage.
Yeah.
And I thought this was really interesting. And I think I have to be careful of this one myself because I don't like to get my feelings hurt. But if you stop thinking of feedback as criticism and start accepting it as feedback, as a way to improve, stop worrying about, if your wife told you or your husband told you, and the closer somebody is, the harder I think the feedback is to take because we take it more personal. Mm-hmm. But you've got to break through this. It's going to hurt my feelings idea to the point where we say, I can improve. I have to judge what this person said. I remember, Scott, when I did my first presentation, when I was with my first sales company that we sold training, and I went down to Mankato to a Chamber of Commerce and I did a talk, and there were 100 people there and 96 of them liked me and 4 of them hated me.
Oh, yeah.
And I took it back to my boss and I said, what did I do wrong? He said, you got 96%. He said, quit worrying about the 4 that didn't like you. Maybe their cat wet the rug right before they left, or their wife yelled at them, or their kids had bad grades the night before. There's things out of our control. If you get 96%, that's pretty good feedback that you're doing okay. And I had to learn to not overvalue the 4. Now, if the 4 all said the same thing, I would look at that and try and study that and say, what could I do better? But if they were all over the board, maybe they didn't like the topic. They shouldn't have even been there, right? So you can't worry about all that. But one thing he did talk about, look for positive feedback, as well as all feedback isn't negative. It's feedback. Are you doing well or are you doing poorly?
How do you get better? You listen to negative feedback. It might sound like it's critical or it's criticism. It's feedback, and feedback is a gift. And when we get it, for people that are willing to share it with us, it is a gift. There's so many people that wouldn't say anything. I mean, they wouldn't give you a feedback form. They wouldn't fill out a survey. They wouldn't do any of that.
Right.
And how do we feel about that? Did they like us? Well, I don't know. I really want to know, how can I get better? I always start a class and I say, everybody's got an evaluation on your desk, and my goal right here is to get all 5s in all of these areas. So that's my goal starting off right now. If I don't deserve a 5, then please tell me what I can do to deliver a 5. And of course, I always dwell on the ones that give me a 3. I go, what the? I mean, you're the only one that gave me a 3. Where were you sitting, and what made that impact a 3? Because I dwell on that too, versus everybody that gave me 5s.
Well, I do the numerical thing too, but I really read the comments
Mm-hmm.
when I do my feedback forms, and I want to know if there's something. And I do look for if there's 2 or 3 people that say the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the funny thing I find most often is most of the negative feedback is internal. We didn't like the lunch they served us,
Oh,
or they,
sure.
we didn't like the room was too hot or too cold.
Oh,
It's
the
like,
air
okay,
was
good.
blowing on me the whole time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think, okay, good. They're looking for something that they can do negative, and it's not me. So maybe I did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I do look for that feedback that is consistent or comes from more than one source, rather than just one person, because one person can have a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this question. It's in the chapter. It's in the book. How would you rate the quality of our relationship this week?
Oh, that was really a great question.
If every sales manager did that, if every salesperson did that, if every director of sales, VP, a president, CEO did that with all of their direct reports, it would be fascinating.
2 reasons we don't do that. 2 reasons we don't do it.
Right,
Number
right.
1, we don't think about it.
Yeah.
And number 2, we don't want to hear.
Right. That's true.
We don't want to know. So we don't ask because we don't want to know. But if you make it a habit, once a week, ask your wife or your husband, what could we do to have a better relationship this week?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they'll tell you.
Right. Yeah.
And it may be something you don't want to do. So
I start a weekly sales meeting every Monday morning. I go around the room, answer salespeople. What do you want to celebrate that you accomplished last week? What do you want to celebrate from last week?
Right.
And they, the first time they kind of look at me going, huh? What do you mean? I go, what do you want to celebrate from last week? Which means you went beyond the call of duty. You did something superior in the focus of being customer centric. And you want to share that with everybody else, and you want to be recognized for doing that. After a while, they started having that as their goal every single day is I need to do something today that I want to share at the sales meeting on Monday to celebrate that I went beyond the call of duty.
But it took you 5-10 meetings for them to start to catch.
Oh, it really did.
Absolutely.
It really did.
Absolutely. Well, we're so used to negative feedback.
Yeah.
I always talk about the school system. All they ever do is give us negative feedback. They, you get your paperback, it says -5. It doesn't say +95.
Yeah.
And the assumption is if you fix those 5 things, you're going to be perfect.
Right.
I think it's always good to be moving forward, but understanding that we have value in what we're already doing is good too.
Yeah.
So
number 20, this is my favorite chapter out of the book.
Well, it was only 3 pages. That's
exactly.
Why.
You got it. You nailed it. Oh, I'm loving this one.
Commit to constant and never-ending improvement. Are we talking to the choir on this one?
Yeah,
people listening to podcasts, reading books,
very
maybe.
True. Yeah, Kaizen. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. Not a surprise. I recognized everything in here going, I've heard this from him already, but a great chapter, and the highlight that I took it, to become a master takes time, and you need to constantly bring the saw. You need to constantly be committing. I mean, that 10,000 hours, who was that? Malcolm Gladwell says 10,000 hours to become an expert.
To become competent. Yeah. Well, I think the real interesting thing, here's a question to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, how many books do you have on your bedstand?
Oh my.
How many books do you have that you're in the middle of reading or you have stacked up ready to read? If the answer is none, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting enough new ideas. If you're not reading along with this book with us, but you're listening to these podcasts, you're missing an opportunity. You're missing an opportunity to think and find for yourself. I can't tell you how many ideas I've gotten from books, usually reminders of things I used to do before. But as they say, you're convicted between the pages of the book, and it's that time to think. And I think that's very important. So how many books do you have stacked up? Number 2, what are you listening to? Are you listening to new ideas, or are you listening to the news? I'm sorry. I feel very bad for the people in Ukraine. I'm making a donation to a group that is helping them. That's about all I can do. But to watch bloodshed footage and bombs dropping footage and worry about it day and night when I don't have any people that I know in the Ukraine, I don't have any, I can't involve myself so fully in that I can't think. Same with politics. Politics is just chewing up the same stuff and spitting it out again. And you're just not going to win. The news media's goal anymore is to get you angry so you listen more. Get you angry so you listen more. So be careful about what you're listening to, what you're putting in your mind.
Yeah. That's good advice, Bill.
Quit putting garbage in, or that's all you're going to get out. And you're going to, you listen to these news shows and then you talk to a client and you argue with them.
Yeah.
right?
I've got about 20 books on my reading table next to my chair, and I just pick one up based on what kind of mood I'm in or what I'm most interested and curious in.
Mhm.
And it's just fascinating how I feel just after reading 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah.
I'm working with a salesperson, and we just finished the book by Anthony Iannarino, Eat Their Lunch, and it's about taking business from your competitors. And we just finished the book up, and the salesperson said, "Well, that's the second book I read on sales." And I'm like, wow, I mean, you really need to read more books on a profession and a career that you've picked if you want to get better.
Yeah.
You have got to commit to reading more books.
I don't want a guy designing my bridges that only read one book on engineering and
no, but
never
they got a
took
college
class.
degree. But they got a college degree, and they taught them all in college, and then they didn't have to learn anything more.
Well, I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people said, "I'm not going to read again after they finish school, whatever that level of school was."
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I think when you start to read things that are in your profession, you're going to get a lot more out of them because you can adjust things, you can get new ideas. I'm reading a book now from a person who's going to be a guest for us here in a couple of months, Dale Merrill. And so I'm excited about that book that I'm reading, and maybe we'll have it as our book of our book club selection. We'll see if we do that. But anyway, keep learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep learning.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Next week we'll finish up part 1 with chapters 21 through 24. So you get a break, only four chapters.
Okay.
This segment is being brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Get in the Door by Steve Kloida.
I'm Ron Lehman, and I want to tell you about one of the best sales books I've ever read. The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Get in the Door, gives you the tools and techniques to fill your pipeline and achieve more sales success. The author is Steve Kloida, known as the prospecting expert, and this book proves it. So if you want to learn from the master, get The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Get in the Door. It's available at theprospectingexpert.com. Just click on the Buy Book button.
Our topic today is on the difference between sales and marketing. And there's kind of a blurry line between these two. And there's different interpretations, Bill, on different companies and how they interpret this. And some companies think that they're the same thing, when in reality, they complement each other, but they are not the same thing. Of course, they both deal with top line revenue and bringing in income for the company. But how would you define the difference, Bill?
Well, I think for me, the difference is that marketing is there to grease the skids for sales. And I mean by that, they make people aware of our products or services. Maybe they send out, and they do that in a number of ways. So you have to have a good website. We know that in Sales 2.0 right now, that people are going to judge you by what they learn on your website before they even talk to you. So if you don't have a good enough website, you're in trouble. I think they send out emails. Maybe they do traditional advertising like radio or print ads or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so they're making people aware that we're out there, that our company is out there. So when I make a call, they don't say, "Who are you? I've never heard of you."
Right.
And I'm a small enough company that, I've never heard of you is pretty common when I make phone calls. But let's sit down and learn about each other. And here's what I know about you already. So sales then has to go out and complete the process. And I think the most important thing is they really need to understand what marketing is saying out there, so that when they make their phone calls or they answer a lead, they're not confusing the customer.
Right. I think marketing is everything that happens before a prospect identifies himself, raises their hand, and engages in a conversation with a representative from the company. Mm-hmm. A salesperson, via a phone call, via a web form, via downloading a white paper. Now they've identified themselves as an interested prospect in the topic that the business provides, that they'd want to learn more. Then a salesperson engages in the conversation and creates that interest and curiosity into a commitment. And when we think about, I've never heard of you, that's an objection. And you say, well, that's not uncommon. A lot of people have said that. We really are committed to creating experiences with people that we engage with versus just advertising out there into the marketplace.
Right. I call it being
a brand,
being a boutique rather than being a major brand. So
Yeah.
So what do you think about marketing and sales? How should they work together, and what should they do to be most productive?
I think it all really focuses on a value proposition. And when it comes to a value proposition, which department, Bill, do you think creates that?
Well, I think that marketing probably focuses on it and creates it, but sales should have some say in how it's initiated
Leveraged.
and used, and how it's but
Yeah.
I don't think sales is necessarily a bunch of good word merchants that are going to figure out that value proposition.
No. I mean, they're in the business of persuading and influencing people to make a decision, to make a change. That's a salesperson's job, is to influence people to make a change. And salespeople, first of all, have got to be committed to accepting change in their life, because if they don't buy change, they can't sell change. And salespeople have got to be able to learn different ways of engaging in a conversation with somebody in order to convince them, to guide them, to aid them over the line to make a change to doing something different, whether it's a different product or it's a different service. They need to do that. So let me just kind of go down some words, Bill, and you tell me, what do you think, that they're sales or they're marketing? Because I think some of our listeners might want to go back and look at some of the things that they're doing and think about what they're concentrating on. But
how they can stay in their own lane.
Yeah. So what is branding?
I think branding is definitely marketing.
How
we're perceived in the marketplace is what marketing should be doing.
What about qualifying?
It's got to be sales.
Yeah. Website?
Website's marketing.
Yeah. Go ahead. I cut you off on the other one.
No, that's all right.
Okay. Market served.
I'm not sure what you mean. What our market is? I think that's
who do we market to?
Oh, well, certainly marketing.
Marketing, yeah.
Yep.
Lead generation.
Marketing.
Closing.
Marketing.
Closing? Trying to follow along. I'm not trying to trap you here. Okay.
I just wanted to see your response to that, because I think the problem is that sometimes, now this is from a sales guy's standpoint, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Sometimes marketing thinks they can do that.
Right.
Marketing thinks that a lead is calling in to say, we want to buy 500,000 of these things.
Right.
And I don't think we value each other. So obviously closing is the sales process. And so you need to have that conversation about the details and the issues and the needs and how we can best serve you and how we can best modify whatever we have to fit your specific needs. And that all comes in the closing, and it's not going to happen through advertising.
Right.
No matter how much a car company spends on advertising, and they spend a lot, the goal is to get them in the showroom so a salesperson can do their job.
And another reason that car companies advertise it, they call it after the sale. So if you went out and bought a brand new Cadillac and you see a Cadillac ad, you feel better about buying that Cadillac.
Right.
And it's true. It is very, very true.
I think that's probably then true for it. It's probably true for every advertiser, because they say, oh, look I did this thing, and now I saw this fancy ad for it in my magazine, and I have one of those. I'm kind of proud of that. So.
Right. It also appeals to the herd theory or the herd mentality. People want to be part of a group. So if they buy something and then they see it advertised, they go, oh, I'm part of a group. People that have bought this, this company is advertising to us. So I know I'm not alone, because other people are buying this because I bought it too. And that's how advertising, and that's marketing too.
Right.
But I think, the salespeople leverage marketing. Marketing creates interest and curiosity. Then salespeople need to say, so I'm kind of curious, what made you decide to call us today? What's happening in your life? What was in the ad that was most appealing? Why did you click on that banner ad now? Why didn't you click on it last week? Find out the timeliness, the motivation of why somebody wants to make a change today. Why did you call us today and not last week? Or why didn't you wait until next month to call us? That's the urgency. That's the motivation. Prospects define value. When salespeople ask the questions to uncover value, and then salespeople are delivering value, now that's the foundation of a purchase and a commitment.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure as salespeople, from our standpoint, that we have a very good understanding of what the value proposition is that sales and marketing have agreed upon. And I think that has to be done, and that can change over time. Salespeople can be going out there and talking, and we agreed on what we thought the value proposition was. And then in sales, we're finding out they're buying for very different reasons.
Right.
And so we need to adjust that value proposition with marketing. So we're always in that adjustment. And one of the words you had on our script was strategy as well. It's the same thing. That's everyone's responsibility.
Yeah.
And that can change over time. What's working, what's not working, that should continue to be reassessed. We make wrong estimations sometimes about what that value proposition, what that strategy is. And marketing and sales need to continue to work together to hone things. It's not something that you created and now the customer better figure out our value proposition. We thought this was it, and now we're talking to our customers and we're finding out they're looking for something a little different. We need to adjust our value proposition to meet what those customers are looking for.
Yeah. So true. When OnStar first came onto the marketplace, it was only in Cadillacs. And this was before the cell phone, folks. So if you haven't heard of OnStar, it's before the cell phone. They would position it and they would sell it. They would market it as a convenience. So it's in a Cadillac and you're coming home and you want to make dinner reservations. You get on OnStar and you say, hey, I'd like to take my husband, wife out to dinner tonight. I want to call and make reservations. I'll call the OnStar and then they can get a reservation for me at a restaurant. Well, people weren't buying the convenience. It just was like, I don't need it. You know what made the difference with OnStar is they found out why people really wanted it. And here's why they wanted it. They said, if I'm upside down in a ditch, I want to be able to call somebody to come and get me. Mm-hmm. Now it became more important to them personally as to the consequences and risk that they take if they don't have it. And that's, I think, loss aversion is very powerful when it comes to persuasion of why people buy. Then they started selling tons of OnStar subscriptions is because it was more of an aid in the case of something goes wrong. And we see ads on TV all the time for all of these aids that help people that are have limited mobility or they might fall or they need help. And now that has a lot more value.
That's right. And my mother has one, and it's safely tucked in her bathroom in case she falls in her bathroom, but nowhere else because she won't wear it. So,
right.
So there's still things overcome in how we use something. As with the OnStar, right? We thought it was going to be for this and for something else. So I think we really have to continue to work with marketing. And I'm saying this from a sales standpoint.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Marketing really needs to stay in their lane and not think they can close the deal because they're so good and so creative. And sales needs to stay in their lane and say, we'll take it from here, but we're going to continue to message back to you what we're hearing. What we assumed from the customer standpoint is not always what's going to happen. And sales is very much responsible for being the voice of the customer back to marketing so they can continue to hone and create a better message. And if sales isn't doing that, then they're missing an opportunity to make all that money that goes into marketing as valuable as can be.
Yeah. I've heard one person say, I believe that marketing is ground cover. Soldiers on the street, those are the salespeople. Those are the people covering the beat. And marketing is covering, it's air support. It's to really make it easier for those that are on the street.
Yeah.
Covering the beat.
All right. Any other points you want to make on this?
No. I think that it's both are important. And I think depending on what kind of business you're in, if you're a retail or a B2B, I think the emphasis on sales and marketing is going to vary. Retail, I think, relies heavily on marketing because it's tough to really reach everybody through a sales activity versus a B2B. If you're selling printing services, you can call businesses and know that everybody that is in a business is probably needing printing. So it's a little bit easier market to target versus if you're running a restaurant, more of a retail environment, then you have to do some marketing through advertising, building awareness, familiarity, and then create incentives for them to come in, reasons for them to come in. And it's not always discounting the price. That's not always the answer. It's other reasons that they might come in and buy from you.
I think the most important thing is make sure if you're the sales leader that you're talking to the marketing leadership on at least a monthly basis and trying to hone that message, and don't just ignore them because they don't know anything. I hear that quite often from marketing doesn't know what they're doing. Well, if they don't know what they're doing, it's because you're not helping them hone that message better. So work together to make it most valuable, because that marketing is going to get done. And if you're in sales, you want it to be as valuable as possible.
Yeah. Good advice.
All right. So we're going to wrap up with our golden nugget. And I'm stealing these from the The Jack Canfield, the Success Principle book, because he's got so many.
Mhm.
And this is from Stephen King. Talent is cheaper than table salt. What separates the talented individual from the successful one is a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm. Good one. And it was an interesting story about the movie Carrie, which was in the book, and how Stephen King wrote the book.
I think
Carrie.
I think it was the book he was trying to sell, right?
Yeah, the book, yeah. And then later became into a movie.
Right.
But he wrote the book. He didn't like it. He did a lot of revisions. He threw it out. His wife went through the trash, pulled it out, ended up sending it out to a few other publishers, different publishers, and they ended up publishing it. And then it became a screenplay, and then obviously a movie followed. So sometimes, we need to be able to be persistent.
When he sold a couple of million copies of that book, people started to pay attention to him.
Yeah, amazing how that happens.
So he gave a lot of examples of people who wrote books and what they had to go through.
Yeah,
but it's not only the hard work of making sure the book is perfect as you can make it, but then how are you going to go out and market yourself? How are you going to go out and talk to people? I know his whole example of how they marketed Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to take it on, and then they took it on, and now that the franchise has sold 100 million copies. Somebody missed the boat. Missed the boat.
Yeah.
All right. Wrap it up.
So everything we talked about is going to be at the website winningatselling.com. Love to hear from you. Different ideas that you have on topics that you'd like Bill and I to cover. We'll put them into the show and we'll talk about them. So grateful for your feedback.
Our book club, again, is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Go out and buy it if you haven't. It is a very good book. We're going to do the end of part 1, principles 21 through 24. And our topic, since baseball season is starting, made me think about breaking out of a slump. So we have slumps in sales. We have times where we're not feeling good, times where things aren't going well. How do we break out of a slump? So Scott and I will give some ideas on how to do that. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.